we're going to do the Big 12 tier rankings. I'm going to do my Big 12 tier rankings for this week. Now, before we get into the show, I want to give a quick shout out to my sponsors, Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law, and BetUS Online Sportsbook and Casino. Thanks to them for helping me keep the lights on. Be right back. Since 1931, the attorneys at Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. Let's go to the Big 12 tier rankings. I don't want to keep you waiting any longer. See if you can take this to full screen mode, maybe. I think you can see it all right, can't you? All right, yeah, you can see that all right. If I go to full screen, it might actually get covered up by some of the logos. So let's go ahead and now I did not do these last week, just did not have the time to sit down and do the research for it, to be honest. So this is from the week 12 show that I did a couple weeks ago, right? This is where I had those teams ranked 2 weeks ago. Before, and most of these teams have played 2 games. All have played at least 1 game since then, right? So what I'm going to do is go by each game that was played this past week. I'll talk about each of those teams and where I seed or where I will rank each of those teams. Let's start off with the UCF versus West Virginia game, the game I was obviously the most interested in. UCF went to Morgantown. They lose the game 31-21 to my Mountaineers. UCF falls to 4-7 on the year, 2-6 in Big 12 play. RJ Harvey did his thing, had 130 yards on the ground, but West Virginia was able to really control the clock in the game by running the ball. They held the ball for over 37 minutes in the game. They ran the ball well themselves with C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White, Garrett Green. Like I said, they controlled the clock, played a very, very efficient game, converted a lot on 4th down to really keep momentum going and kind of put daggers into that UCF defense. UCF was not able to throw the ball much, even despite West Virginia's pass defense struggling. UCF was on their 4th-string quarterback. They've had trouble with quarterback play all year. That's really been their Achilles heel. So West Virginia was able to win the game. UCF, like I said, falls to 2-6 in league play, 4-7 overall. So I'm going to drop. UCF's already bottom shelf. I'd say that's where they'll stay. They're still a bottom shelf team. I still think they're better than the well teams. All right. West Virginia, they improved to 6-5 overall, 5-3 in league play, and they are still mathematically in the hunt for a Big 12 title, but they would need a ton of help, like 100 things to happen, and they obviously would have to beat Texas Tech this coming weekend. But like I said, West Virginia won the game 31-21. Garrett Green was efficient. I think he was, 9 of 15 throwing the ball, something like that. Made some big plays when he needed to make them, whether it was with his legs, with his arm. He completed several 4th downs, conversions. Just West Virginia just made plays when it didn't look great. It didn't look, beautiful at times. And UCF even outgained them in some areas. But West Virginia just made plays in crucial times, which is something they had struggled to do a lot earlier in the year. And they did do it. They also got great play from their special teams. Preston Fox had like 200 yards received or return. 200 return yards in the game, I think it was, or something like that. Oliver Straw had a great game punting the football, had a 57-yard punt. I think his average on the day was like 50 yards. So he had a great game. So just a really good day in special teams. So West Virginia, I guess technically they're still in the conversation for a Big 12 title hunt, so I'm leaving them where they are as in the conversation. They're not a pretender because they're 5-3, even though they've not played great at times. They are technically still in the conversation, so that's where they stay. Now, the next game was Arizona versus TCU. It was Arizona at TCU. TCU wins the game 49-28. First, let's talk about Arizona. They dropped to 4-7 on the year overall and dropped to 2-6 in league play. Arizona still cannot run the football effectively. They had only 39 yards rushing in the game. Now, they still threw the ball pretty well with Noah Fafita, Tedderbo McMillan and company. But they're one-dimensional. Teams can just try to slow them down in the passing game, limit their passing game as much as possible. They can't run it well, and they're also not stopping anybody on defense. They might be worse than West Virginia on defense, and that's saying something. They just struggle to stop anybody. I think they gave up 56 a couple weeks ago. So, and they gave up 49 to TCU this week. They're just putting up a lot of points. So in Arizona right now, they are, like I said, 2-6 in league play, 4-7 overall. I'm dropping them down to, well, they're not really in the well, are they? Are they in the well? I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave them in the well for now. I might move them later. We'll see. They do have the same amount of wins as UCF, but UCF is a better football team than Arizona. Matter of fact, they spanked them a couple weeks ago. So, yes, UCF is slightly better, so I'm leaving Arizona where they are for now. Let's talk about TCU next. Right now, I had them as a pretender. They moved to 7-4 on the year, 5-3 in league play. They had 452 total yards of offense. Enough said. They limited Arizona's run game to 39 yards, and they just continue to put up points. They're one of those teams who have 3 conference losses on the year. And there's a group of like 5 of them or 4 of them that have 3 losses that are all tied for second place in the league right now. TCU's among that group. So they're going out and trying to win their 8th football game this coming week, which would be a decent year for them. Sonny Dykes has that team playing well offensively. Josh Hoover's playing well. They're not running the ball great, but they're doing enough to win some games. TCU 7 and I'm going to move them up to end the conversation. I don't know if they technically have a shot or not, but it's only fair to put them there because they have actually a better record than West Virginia overall. So I'm putting them in the conversation. West Virginia's played a tougher schedule, though, in the non-conference. So I think that needs to be said as well. But anyway, let's go to – but their conference records are identical, so I'm putting them both there. Let's go to BYU versus Arizona State. Now, this was really the game of the week, in my opinion, in the Big 12. It was 2 ranked teams going at it. The game was at Arizona State. BYU drops their 2nd game in a row. Arizona State wins their 4th game in a row. But let's talk about BYU first. They lose 28-23. They drop to 9-2 overall, 6-2 in Big 12 play. They no longer control their own destiny to win the league and get in the college football playoff. They now need some help. They are one of 4 teams with 2 losses, right there with Iowa State, Colorado, and Arizona State. They all have 2 conference losses, all have a chance to win the league still. But BYU, if they all finish with 2 losses, it's my understanding they would not win the tiebreaker. So they need to win and get some help. Jake Retzlaff threw 2 interceptions in the game. That didn't help them. BYU was held to only 94 yards rushing. Now, their defense still played pretty well, giving up only 28 points to Arizona State, which is not terrible. But BYU had been winning ugly a lot this year, and that finally came back to bite them these last couple of weeks. And they just could not do enough to win the game. They actually had a chance to win it with a Hail Mary late, but was not able to complete it. And basically, at the end of the day, it came down to Arizona State making more plays in winning time than what BYU did. So Arizona State came out on top. Now, Arizona State, again, they haven't been winning pretty either. They've been winning a lot of close games. Hats off to Kenny Dillingham and only his 2nd year in that program after being picked to finish dead last by most in the Big 12 media poll. Here they are, controlling their own destiny, potentially to get in the Big 12 title game. But as far as BYU goes, they're no longer top shelf. They are now a contender, in my opinion, in the Big 12. Now, as far as Arizona State, let's continue that discussion. They're also 9-2 and 6-2 in league play. They just keep finding ways to win games. Like I said, they did give up 440 yards of offense to BYU, but still found a way to win the game. Like I said, they just made plays at winning time. Cam Scatteraboo, in my opinion, the most underrated football player in the Big 12, maybe in the country. Young man just continues to have big games. Had 147 yards rushing. And then Jordan Tyson, a great receiver for Arizona State, another big game for him. He's starting to emerge as one of the top receivers in the conference. Had 9 catches for 123 yards. So hats off to Jordan Tyson. I am now moving Arizona State up all the way from in the conversation to a top shelf team in the Big 12. They deserve it. Now let's go to Colorado versus Kansas. Colorado goes to Kansas, a very, very hot Kansas team. Colorado loses the game. Colorado controlled their own destiny to get to Arlington, and they blew this opportunity. They dropped 8-3 overall, 6-2 in the conference. Again, one of those 4 teams at the top with 2 losses. They lose 37-21 to the Jayhawks. They give up over 500 yards of offense. I'm going to say that again. They gave up over 500 yards of offense to the Jayhawks. 333 of those were on the ground to Devin Neal and company. Speaking of Devin Neal, he had 200 yards and 3 touchdowns and also caught a touchdown in the game. So Colorado had no answers for Devin Neal. And on the offensive side of the ball, Colorado was only able to rush for 43 yards, but it's mainly because they only attempted to rush 12 times. The one-dimensional football came back to bite them a little bit in this game. They had been doing a pretty good job stopping the run, but not on this day against this Kansas team who is red hot right now. So Colorado, still a good team. Still have Shedeur Sanders, still have Travis Hunter, arguably the best player in the country. But I'm moving them down one slot to a contender. As far as Kansas goes, they improved to 5-6 overall, 4-4 in league play. They have now won 5 games in a row. I'm glad West Virginia played them before they started this winning streak. Because if they played them now, I have a feeling it would be a different result. Like I mentioned Devin Neal's accolades. Kansas's offense was 9 of 14 on third down in this game. Just very, very good football, especially on offense. Colorado just couldn't keep up. So I'm moving Kansas. Man, I had them at bottom shelf a couple weeks ago. I'm moving them up now to a pretender. Man, I'll tell you what, they're playing better than a pretender, but they're technically not in the conversation for a conference championship. So I don't feel good about putting them in the conversation, but I'll tell you what, they're playing as good as those teams in the conversation. But because of their record and the struggles they had early on, I just can't do it. But they did move up, and they do deserve kudos for the football they've been playing as of late. Now let's go to the Texas Tech versus Oklahoma State game. Before I do, though, I want to check with the chat room, see how everybody's doing. Got Mark Thomas in the house. He's joined the chat, I believe. Anybody else new? Locked on West Virginia is up in. We all know he likes Garrett Riley. Thank you, Paul. We've got anybody else new? I don't see anybody else new. All right. Let's keep rolling. Like Limp Bizkit. Rolling. All right. We've got Texas Tech versus Oklahoma State. The game was at Oklahoma State. Texas Tech wins the game 56-48. Texas Tech is West Virginia's opponent this week. Texas Tech improves to 7-4, and just like West Virginia, just like 2 other teams, they are 5-3 in conference play. Texas Tech continues to put up huge numbers offensively. They put up 544 yards of offense, 404 of those through the air. Baron Morton was 35 of 50 for 366 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he also threw a pick. Taj Brooks continues also to run the ball well, had 28 carries for 103 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the offense pretty much runs through him. They can run play action off of Taj Brooks because he's so dangerous. It opens up everything for them in that passing game, that high-tempo, fast-paced offense that Zach Keatley likes to play there in Lubbock. I'm really worried about that game for my Mountaineers this week. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's a good matchup for West Virginia, but I'll cover that in another show. But Texas Tech's not good on defense. They give up a lot of yards. They gave up 48 points to Oklahoma State, right? But man, you have to outscore Texas Tech to beat them, and not many teams can. So I'm going to move Texas Tech up to end the conversation because you know what? They technically are. Just like West Virginia, if they win the game and get a ton of help, they could somehow find their way into Arlington for the Big 12 title game. All right, now let's talk about Oklahoma State, the team they beat. Again, they put up 48 points, so they had a pretty good day offensively. Put up 556 yards of total offense, actually more than Texas Tech had by a little bit. 353 passing, 203 rushing, so they were pretty balanced. Averaged 7.3 yards per carry. Ollie Gordon averaged 10.4 yards per carry, carried it 15 times for 156 yards, and put in 3 touchdowns. Looked more like the Ollie Gordon we saw a year ago. The problem with Oklahoma State is they just couldn't stop Texas Tech and could not get off the field on third down. Texas Tech was I didn't write it down, but anyway, they struggled to get off the field on third down in this game. And Oklahoma State falls to 3-8 overall, 0-8 in conference play. Boy, I look back at week 3 of the season or week 2, whatever it was, and I remember them beating Arkansas, and I'm thinking, man, this Oklahoma State team is going to be dangerous. Now here they are with no wins in the conference. Now they have been riddled with injuries, and their quarterback play has never came to fruition like they hoped it would with Alan Bowman. What a rough year for Gundy and the boys there in Stillwater. I had them in the well 2 weeks ago. I have to leave them there because they're winless in league play, and they're the only winless team in the conference. All right, let's go to Baylor versus Houston. I have a couple more games to go here. Baylor versus Houston. Every team played last week, so I got 8 games to talk about. Baylor wins the game 20-10 at Houston. They moved to 7-4 on the year, 5-3 in league play. Another 5-3 team. Baylor has now won 5 in a row as well, just like Kansas. Baylor held the ball for almost 35 minutes in this game. They had 352 total yards of offense, 204 passing, 148 rushing. Jake Spavital on that offense continued to be balanced. The defense held Houston to 92 yards rushing. They forced 4 Houston turnovers. Now, they did turn it over 3 times on their own, so they didn't play a perfect game by any stretch. Looked ugly at times, but they pulled out a W. They're 5th in a row. So Baylor has now become – I think there was one time – I have to look back, but I think I may have even had them in the well at one time. But I've got to move them up from a pretender to end the conversation because just like Texas Tech and West Virginia, they technically are in the conversation. They need a lot of help, but they do have a mathematical chance of getting to Arlington. Now, as far as Houston goes, they dropped to 4-7 overall, 3-5 in league play. They did force the 3 interceptions by Sawyer Robertson, and they continue to play well on defense. They held a very high-powered Baylor offense to only 20 points. That's the same Baylor team that came to Morgantown the week prior and put up 49. So they can score in large numbers. Houston held them to 20, but Houston also struggles offensively. They just cannot put up enough points to beat teams. I do think Willie Fritz will get that fixed, and I have confidence that Houston will be a good football team in the future. He just needs some time to get more guys, to get more talent. So I'm still going to leave Houston. They're 3-5 in league play, so I'm going to leave them as a pretender. You know what? As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to move Houston down a notch. I think they're a bottom shelf team. They're not that good. Their offense is terrible. Again, doesn't mean their program's bad. I know they just fired their offensive coordinator, I think, today. So they are making moves to try to improve, and I think they will. I think Willie Fritz is a really good coach. But year 1 of his tenure, not going so well. They're a bottom shelf team. I don't think it's fair to put them there with Kansas because Kansas beat them. All right. Let's go to Iowa State versus Utah. Iowa State, the team who has a legit shot to get to Arlington and to get in the CFP. Iowa State wins the game 31-28 at Utah. They improved to 9-2 and 6-2 in league play. The offense was 8 for 16 on third down. Really good performance there. They had 405 total yards of offense against a really good Utah defense, too. Now, Utah's struggles this year have mainly been on the offensive side of the ball, and Iowa State was able to put up 405 yards, time of possession of nearly 36 minutes in the game. And their defense gave up only 9 first downs and 224 total yards to Utah. And, Rocco Beck, almost said Anthony, his dad. But Rocco Beck threw the ball 38 times, completed 20 of them for 256 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And then Jalen Higgins, I think it's Jaden. Anyway, he caught 9 balls for 155 yards, just continues to impress and show why he's likely going to play on Sundays. Iowa State, to me, is a top shelf team in this league. So I'm putting them as a top shelf team because they, just like Arizona State, can control their own destiny, I think, to get to Arlington. These tiebreakers in the Big 12 are so chaotic. I have to say I think because there are so many different scenarios. I'm not 100% confident. Utah, they dropped to 4-7 on the year, 1-7 in conference play. Boy, what a disappointing season for the Utes. They were pretty much the at-large favorite to win this league. It just has not come to fruition. Cam Rising, they thought he would be back, did not work out. They just did not have a backup quarterback ready to go, which to me is a little crazy. Is Kyle Whittingham done there? Is he going to retire? There's a lot of questions surrounding that. Their defense has played well for the most part this season, up until this game, obviously, but they just haven't been able to do anything offensively. They were only 3 of 10 on third down, only put up 224 yards, only 95 yards on the ground. They did force 2 turnovers, but it just wasn't enough. And they did hold Iowa State to 25 points, which is not terrible. But again, actually, it was 31 points. I don't know where I got that number from. But nonetheless, forget I said that about 25 points. But anyway, I may have wrote down the wrong score. Nonetheless, you guys get it. Iowa State beat Utah. Utah's not a very good team. I'm dropping them down to the well. They deserve to be in the well with Arizona and Oklahoma State. They're just bad. They're terrible. All right. One more game, and you guys are done hearing me ramble and rant and make blunders. All right. Cincinnati at Kansas State. Kansas State wins the game 41-15. Blowout win for the Wildcats. Let's talk about Cincinnati first. They dropped their second straight game. They are now 5-6 overall and 3-5 in league play. They went 0-5 on fourth down. That was critical. That you just could not make plays in key moments. And they were 3-12 on third down. So they just could not make plays when they needed to. Defensively, they gave up 428 yards and 281 yards on the ground to DJ Giddens and Avery Johnson and company. And that Cincy offense put up 374. They did put up 374 yards, and they committed a turnover. So that hurt them too. Just couldn't put up enough points to compete with Kansas State. Cincinnati, I'm dropping them. They are 3-5 in league play, so I have to drop them down to a bottom shelf team. All right. K-State, a team who at one time was a top shelf team in this league. They dropped a couple games. They're now 8-3 overall after that win. They're 5-3 in league play. DJ Giddens ran the ball 15 times for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. I also think he's an underrated back. Avery Johnson gets most of the attention there, but DJ Giddens really carries that offense, in my opinion. Avery Johnson also carried the ball 10 times for 72 yards and a touchdown. Threw the ball 23 times, completed 13 for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. The K-State defense played pretty well, holding Cincy to 15 points. That's not a bad day. So Kansas State, after another win, I don't know if they have a shot at the Big 12 title, technically. I guess they do. I don't know. But nonetheless, I don't think they win any tiebreakers. But I'm going to put them as a contender anyway because I think they are a better team than West Virginia and probably a better team than TCU and Texas Tech. So I'm going to leave them as a contender. I think they deserve to be there. So to summarize, I have the 2 top shelf teams in this conference as Arizona State and Iowa State. I have contenders of Kansas State, BYU, and Colorado. I have in the conversation West Virginia, TCU, Texas Tech, and Baylor. Kansas, the only pretender. And I honestly almost moved them up a notch, but they're 4-4, so I didn't think it was fair. Bottom shelf teams are UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati. And then the 3 well teams in this conference, the 3 worst teams in the league, in my opinion, are Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Utah. So that is tier rankings for this week. What do you guys think? Appreciate everybody tuning into the show. Be sure you hit the thumbs up button for me, please, if you enjoyed the content. That really helps that YouTube. And even if you're watching it on the replay, that thumbs up really, really does a lot to move the needle for YouTube. It shows YouTube that you like what I'm doing here. The comments help too. And sharing it out helps. And, of course, subscriptions always help too. Help me get that number up. But I appreciate everybody tuning into the show. Another quick shout-out to my sponsors, BetUS Online Sportsbook and Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law. Thank you all. Have a top shelf night, top shelf day if you're watching the replay. And cue Country Roads.